All right, it's time to talk more NFL draft with Dave Syvertsen from ourlads.com. He is the senior scout, lead scout, whatever we want to call him. I call him the lead scout here at Our Lads on the Our Lads Football Network. And Dave, good to have you back. We're going to talk rankings now.
Yeah, these are it. These have been signed, sealed, delivered, and you're not allowed to make any changes between now and then, right?
That's it.
That's what. So these are the final rankings. I guess we're starting off the offense today, defense later in the week, and it's fun. This is favorite time of the year. A lot of the work is already done, so you can kind of sit back and enjoy some of the process rather than just continuing to circle back into more reports, more tape. And it's like the fruit of the labor. You've done all the work, and you can hear what popped out of the popper.
Yep, and as you can see, we've got your top 10 for each offensive position being scrolled here. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more than top 10 with the skill positions because there are just tons of those guys. But for the most part, you're seeing the top 10 for each position, and these are Dave's. These are Dave's final rankings. Keeping in mind at our lads, there's several scouts. Dave's the lead one. And then it kind of all meshes together for the Our Lads official rankings. But these are Dave's personal rankings. And this way he can stick his neck out for himself, which I'm sure he's got no problem doing that. And we can go from there, starting with the quarterback position. So what was the defining factor? When did you decide that one of these quarterbacks, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, was better than the other?
So grade-wise, I think they're on the field. They're very similar. One does not stand out from the other, and the one standout from the other is the size of Bryce Young. I don't think it hampers his ability to play quarterback at a high level. And as I said last week, if my life depended on one of these kids to lead a team down the field in the fourth quarter and come from behind to win the game, and if my life was on the line, I want Bryce Young there. But there's more to it than that, right? I know that's a sexy thing to say, and it could maybe break a tie to some. But my question with him is the fact that he's going to play football at a size, at quarterback, that really, at a high level, has never been done for a sustained time. And I worry every time he gets hit by an NFL pass rusher or multiple at the same time and they land on top of him, is he going to get up? That's my number one question with Bryce Young. And that's something that will never go away. Does he escape and evade pressure at a high level? Absolutely. Does he, play with a low pulse? Absolutely. He's got a good enough arm. He's a magician when he uses his legs. But there are just things about his game and his size that are never going to leave. And if he was far and away a better passer, far and away better in clutch situations than C.J. Stroud, then maybe I would still keep him above. But I think as passers, as quarterbacks, they're very similar players, and I simply feel safer with C.J. Stroud.
Yeah, we can go on and on about these two guys, but it's really close. We know it's really close, and a lot of it's also going to definitely depend on where they go, who's coaching them, and all that kind of stuff. And whether they get picked first or second in the draft, that could make it a lot easier for us. We can start discussing that right now, but that's something that we'll discuss after the draft when we know exactly where these guys are headed and what kind of careers that we believe that they might have based on their destination. But they're two very talented quarterbacks, and hopefully, because the league needs it, hopefully they turn out to be as good as we think they can be. So let's go through the rest because there's definitely the gap, even though some people believe there isn't a gap. But there's a gap. And then you have Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. Do you think it's Richardson, Levis, and Hooker? Or do you think it's Richardson, Levis, and then Hooker? How would you grade those three, those next three?
Yeah, I think all three of those guys are closer together, right, than okay.
You could have kept talking. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start that over. I think the three of those guys are closer together than people think. And a lot of it might be about the system that they're being drafted into in terms of where they stack off, where they come off the board. They're completely different players. If you really break these guys down, there's nothing. They have almost nothing in common. right? Levis and Richardson are a little bit more power guys, big bodies, can take contact. You trust them using their legs like Josh Allen does, right? That he can take hits, Ben Roethlisberger, take hits, get back up. Hendon Hooker, you trust his intangibles. He's a true leader of men. You think that he's going to come in and he's going to rally guys around him. And some teams, especially at the top of the draft, they value that. And at this point, with where I have them graded, I believe there's a chance Hooker goes in front of one of them. And there's even a small chance that he goes in front of both of them at some point. Everyone's talking about Hendon Hooker in the 20s. We have to consider the idea, the concept, the possibility that he could be a top 10 pick because of the intangibles, the age, the knee injury that probably weighs him down a little bit in some eyes. But because of how hard the league is working to protect quarterbacks, I'm not as worried about Hendon Hooker being a couple years older than these guys. I'm really not. So it's going to come down to the eye of the beholder. From a scout's perspective, that does not work for a team. I don't see one of these guys that has a bunch of standout traits above the others. And when you mash them all together, they really are similar prospects grade-wise.
You know, I could have sworn because now we're at the point where I look at some of these, like I'll look at, because I have ESPN Plus, and I'll see the Mel Kiper, like I'll get emailed his latest mock draft, and okay, well, let me take a look at it now. Let me see exactly what their thinking is compared to your thinking. And I was actually very surprised to see how high he has Will Levis.
He's been high on Levis from the beginning.
And is that a shared thought? Like, again, these are your rankings, but I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about what are the biggest differences, and starting at quarterback.
Here are the two things about Levis that if you are a supporter of him and you want to make the case for him being the number 3 guy in this class, you can make a case behind two things. One, he was really hurt this past year.
Yes.
Not much got put out there how bad that lower body injury was. And it hampered him. And he was in a new system with nobody to throw the ball to. He was missing his running back for a long Rodriguez due to suspension. So we're talking about a guy that was just overmatched personnel-wise week to week with an injury in a new offensive system. Part two that I like about Levis that these other guys don't have. Bryce Young, you could make the case he does have this. But again, he's not really in this discussion with Levis, right? He played under 2 different NFL offensive coordinators. And the 2 most popular coaching trees in the NFL are who? Shanahan and McVay. Those are the 2 trees that taught Will Levis football for 2 years. When you watch Will Levis, I got excited when I watched Levis from a scout's perspective this past summer leading up to the season. I was thinking it was going to be him or Bryce Young, no question, right? And then the poor season kind of clouded that vision. What was the reason for the poor season, right? And part of my deep dive on the quarterbacks, I went back and watched 2021 tape. And he was, without a doubt, better back then. He really was. He was a better football player, and maybe he had an off year. This happens in the NFL, especially with a young quarterback that is raw, overly talented, and still the one thing that I don't think Levis has learned yet, he can't rely on his talent to make things happen. It will not work in the NFL. There are so many mental components, proper decisions, and you have to be so precise with your ball location. He has not learned that yet. He is talented. He's as talented as any quarterback in this class, but that's not what it takes to win at the next level. It's between the ears. And, I think the interviews with him are going to be really important. How much did he really soak in from those 2 offensive minds, from the 2 best coaching trees in the NFL? Can he apply that to Sunday football?
The thing about he kind of, in a way, reminds me of Sam Darnold. The fact that Darnold, it happened really fast for Darnold, and he didn't have a whole lot of experience in college. And it was more of, wow, look at what I can work with, and he's going to get better, isn't he? This is just look at what he's done in just a short period of time. Now he's going to get better. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here with Levis. We're projecting But to me, I think he's 3 years away. I think you have to be patient with this kid. You can't do like what the Jets did with Darnold, or maybe even what they did with Zach Wilson. You can't draft Levis and throw him into the week one starting lineup. You can't do that. That might ruin him. He needs time. Just like I actually think Hooker could be thrown into this week one starting lineup. Levis, Richardson, they need at least a year, and I actually think they should have 2 years like Jordan Love.
Yeah, and like that's just not a thing anymore, right? Especially with first-round quarterbacks, and I think that's your case, Greg, that you can't draft a first-round quarterback that needs 2 years. If you draft a kid day 2, give him 2 years. You're fine. You're paying him almost nothing, right? And then you have 2 years before you have to pay him real money. But if you take a kid in the first round, Raiders, thinking about it more and more, I thought he could have been a fit for the Raiders, but the more I think about it, I don't think they're going to do it. And one of the reasons why is you just signed Jimmy G. You're not going to you're not going to use a first rounder on a kid that's going to sit for 2 years. I think Jimmy G is going to get 2 years there. So I think that's just out of the picture now, the more I think about it. And he's going to go in the first round. I would be shocked. So, at what point in the first round does this 2 year window? And I think this is where I think the league falls short. A lot of coaches, hey, I'm not a coach. I'm never going to be. I don't want to come across as a know-it-all there. But I think a lot of coaches rush these quarterbacks into action, and it ruins their careers. And you feel pressure, whether it's from the owner, the fan base, the rest of the team.
Well, isn't that why you have to have communication with the owner? You have to have this general manager, head coach, owner. You all have to be on the same table as far as what you're going to do with these types of situations, especially.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that really, I think Levis can be a guy in the NFL. He's got the tools. He's got the confidence. It's going to be what I said earlier. How well did he take in what he learned from those two offensive lines, and how long does he really need before you can rely on him to be the starting quarterback of your football team?
And I think the Raider example, because, look, I have no idea what the relationship is with owner and head coach. But last year, mid-season, when things weren't going too well, you all of a sudden started hearing, oh, Josh McDaniels should be fired. He's in over his head again. And I never believed that. But I don't know what kind of relationship is going on there. And does he have a short leash? And if Josh McDaniels has a short leash, why would he draft? Why would he want to be a part of drafting Will Levis? And I think because he has that really good relationship with the general manager, that they are seeing eye to eye. It's that does the duo see eye to eye with the owner? That's because that owner has not done a good job, and we went over that when we talked about the Raiders and all of their losing seasons. I don't have to tell Raider fans any of that. They know exactly what I'm talking about. So, yeah. Could it happen? Could it be one of those things where he gets drafted to the Raiders and you go, I should have listened to my first impression? Or is it, hey, you know what? Why would you do that? Unless, because that would be an indication that Josh McDaniels has got time. That there's no way they drafted Will Levis if Josh McDaniels thinks that he has a short leash. So.
Yeah, I think you're on the right page there. If you see them draft quarterback, or maybe even trade up for one, I think that gives a 3 year window for him right now. And if you ask anyone, I mean, that Raider organization is very just inconsistent, unstable, a little bit of dysfunction, right? That especially with what's been happening there over the past 5-6 years, front office, head coaching situation, I don't think that he has an automatic long-term leash. So I think the Garoppolo signing was, hey, it's the best of what's out there, and we're going to have to use this pick on another asset to help the team in another way.
It's going to be very interesting because McDaniels has got the relationship, of course, as good as anybody outside of San Francisco with Jimmy, and you would wonder whether this was sort of like when he got there and he knew what was happening a year from now, that was this the plan all along?
Right.
Was we're going to bring Jimmy over in a year. This is the part, and he's going to be our guy, but they have to still have an insurance policy at some point, which is why you would believe that it would make sense for them to maybe even add a quarterback, but not with that collateral early on in the draft. So By the way, Mel Kiper actually had Levis ahead of C.J. Stroud. Yeah.
Wow.
So
how high? How high did he have
I
him
think
going?
his top 10. He had a top 30, I believe, or top 32, and I think Levis was 5 and Stroud was 6, something like that.
Okay.
So
right there, but yeah, I mean he's been high, and I know I haven't kept myself that updated on his ranks that come out every couple months, but I know that he was very high on Levis from the beginning, and he might just be one of those guys. What I said earlier, that he gave him a little bit of a pass because of what happened to the ankle and that offense.
Well, I remember Ryan Dunleavy from the New York Post brought up Levis's name about a year and a half ago. This might have been after that year you're talking about. This was after his 21 season. And I remember at that point, I honestly, my first reaction after because I was talking about quarterbacks in the draft class coming up in 22 after 22. And I said, there's only a couple of names. But, there's Will Levis. And I swear to God, my instant reaction was, who? I mean, who?
From Kentucky?
Yeah. So, and then I was like, all right, as usual, when it's early and a player only has a year and he's playing at Kentucky, unless you're a scout, unless you're someone that really follows it, you're not really paying attention. So then you go, okay, I'll check him out and so forth. And then obviously 22 is the season to check him out. And that wasn't, as you mentioned, a very good season. But look, the reason I wanted to mention Sam Darnold is because I think he's got the talent like Sam Darnold. He's got the talent like those kids, those 2-year kids. But it's just, it's a risk. It's a bigger risk than it is a C.J. Stroud or a Bryce Young. It just is. There's just and I just don't know. It's going to take guts for any GM to draft him in the top 10.
It is, and a plan. I think that's the most important part that you didn't get with Darnold is what is the plan? And the plan might be, hey, you're third string. No matter what happens to we could lose 4 quarterbacks to injuries. You're still third string.
That's why a Raider type situation would work perfectly for him.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and even if injuries start to pile up and they're 2-11, hey, let's give them a start. No, I think the plan needs to be keep them off the field, and I feel the same way about Richardson.
And I do, yes, and I believe both of those kids could turn out to be real. And look, there and I know fans can even compare, especially Richardson, to a Josh Allen. He wasn't very accurate in college, and look at what happened. I will say this, because this is important. What Josh Allen did in overall, going from his lack of accuracy in college to how accurate he's been in the NFL, is extremely rare. Those things don't happen very often. So to just go, oh yeah, Josh Allen did it, so Anthony Richardson can do it. Maybe he can, but it's, again, you can just be warned, it is rare. That's why, you just can't point there and go, oh, if he did it, then he could do it. So, but again, very talented players, but both, as we've talked about endlessly, they need time. And if they get time and they get the right coaching staffs, then hopefully they'll become really good quarterbacks, as I said before, because the NFL needs good young quarterbacks. All right, so once you get out of the top 5, so let's get to that next group. So when do you think Haener, Hall, McKee, those 3, when do you think they're going to be looked at?
So I still like Haener at exactly in the way that I talked about when we first mentioned quarterbacks months ago. And then we talked about Fresno State in a bowl game. So we talked about him a couple times already.
Like him a lot.
What I felt, I love him a lot as a backup quarterback. As a Taylor Heineke type. That's the first name that came to mind. And again, I don't like to be told, hey, come up with a comparison for this player. But if something pops off the tape, I'll mention it. And, if the measurements line up, the skill set, like I go back, I have an entire database of everyone's pro days, combines, and he measures up. Jake Haener measures up with Heineke all the way. And what I like about Heineke is, when he's on the field, he's not your starter, right? Washington kind of had to give him a go because there's nothing else there. But you also know, like Gardner Minshew, when they come on the field, there's a different energy. There's a different ethos there when they're on the field that could sneak your way into a win or two, right? And I think I get that same vibe from Haener when I watch him play football because he can sling it. He's got a powerful arm when his hips are involved. When his hips are not involved, you see the lack of pure arm ability, and that's okay. Not a very big kid. If anything, he's actually a very small kid. He's smaller than what he's listed at. Just his body type, short limbs. Not a great athlete, but a good enough athlete to escape pressure, and that's where the lack of size can actually help him out. He can evade pressure well enough to create on his own, and I just trust his decision making. This is a kid that did not turn the ball over much, and when the throws were there, he made them. Right? We just got done talking about Richardson and Levis, and the most frustrating part of their tape is they miss a lot of easy throws. You are not allowed to do that in the NFL. Haener does not miss those easy throws. He's not 6'4" and runs a 4.3 at 940 with 250 pounds on him, right? I mean, and sometimes I think we get a little too attached to those numbers. I mean, Haener has it between the ears. You know that he's not going to be I don't see him as even a Brock Purdy type, where he's all of a sudden going to kind of just take over a team and lead him to the NFC Championship. But you know that he's going to be, I think the Purdy had a little bit more arm talent than him, and he had a lot more experience than Haener coming out of college. He played an NFL-style offense at Iowa State. So there was just less curve there for him to adjust into. I mean, could Haener turn into that 5 years from now? I mean, the answer is yes to everyone. Tom Brady can turn into Tom Brady, a 6th-round pick. But as a rookie, I don't see Haener being that guy. I see him being, that Chase Daniel, Taylor Heineke type that can, give you a solid game or two, but law of average usually will rule in all these situations where if you give him 10 starts in a row, you just say, okay, we're good. Put him back on the bench.
So I mean, he was coached, for just this past year?
Say it again?
What's his name again from Cal? Not Cal, Fresno State, the head coach. The former Cal head coach, wasn't he?
Yes, the former Cal head coach. I'm going through my notes
Tedford?
right now.
Tedford.
Yes.
Jeff Tedford.
Yeah. Yep.
So we know that he's a really good quarterback guy. He coaches quarterbacks really well. So what about that? Shouldn't that be a plus for Jake Haener as well?
Yeah, it could be a plus. I mean, I'm not going to beat him down for who he was or who was not coached by him. I don't want to put too much credence into system. We see that kind of beat year to year, good and bad, right? If you play in a pro system, doesn't make you a quarterback. It just puts another feather in your cap. What this does is, he's going to be ahead of the curve.
Yes.
Meaning he's not going to have a hard time learning an offense. So he could be your number 2 right away. That's what that means. Does that mean he is going to start from such a higher place that his ceiling is now higher? I don't believe it goes into that level. I just think it brings the floor a little bit higher, which is what my feel on him is overall. The floor is high enough to say, hey, he could be a 10-year backup in this league that actually makes money in that role.
And you don't think so? And Purdy's a really good example because, we just talked about it. You have to. Where do you go? Where do you land? What kind of team is around you? Are they a stable organization? Do they make it as easy as possible for the new quarterback, like San Francisco's staff and their foundation has? So let's just say Jake Haener was drafted in the 3rd or 4th round by the Denver Broncos.
Okay.
And a couple of years from now, it's time to move on from Russell Wilson. With having Sean Payton coach you for 2 years, could that give him a legitimate shot at being a starter in the league?
Yeah. I mean, answer is yes.
I'm not talking about 5%. I'm talking about a legitimate shot.
Yeah. Like a 50%.
Yeah, does it give him a shot? Does it give it not? Oh yeah, everybody's got a shot. But yeah, does it give him a shot to be does he have that kind of talent? Right, coach? Spent a couple of years. I think you know what? If you're thinking about the positives instead of the negatives, I'd give him a shot. Sure. I'm not gonna say he doesn't have a shot.
Yeah, he a shot, yes. Especially with that offensive mind. I think that has as much to do with Sean Payton as it does as Haener himself. Sure. And to build on that, I would say Haener has a better shot at any of these guys that are in this tier right now, right? The next 2, 3, 4
Yes.
guys, if you said the same thing about them, Keener is head and shoulders above those guys in terms of having that.
So
shot.
is he definitely the 6th quarterback out of that group?
Yes, I have actually a pretty substantial gap between number 6 and number 7. So the guys under him are a tier or two.
All right, and then out of that group, who has the biggest? Who do you think could be a really good long-term number 2?
I love, man. Mike Glennon is the name that popped in my head when I watched Tanner McKee. Just how tall he was, how long he was, but also how lethargic he was with his footwork. Just a really, not a good not a football good athlete. I think he tested pretty well athletically. Good athletic background too, but it just took him forever to evade pressure. And with that said, the arm talent, ball placement, layering the football between linebackers and defensive backs is right up there with some of the best in the class. I don't think he has got that quick trigger that can make a lot of different arm angle throws or explode the ball out of his hand downfield. But on 80% of the throws that are made on Sundays, he can make all of them at a high level. Smart kid, and maybe even a little underrated because of how bad that Stanford team was, especially up front. And that was just that's an example of a quarterback being put into the wrong situation. And we see this in the NFL. He is a very poor athlete who had one of the worst offensive lines in all of college football. So it's just not a good combination. He did have some talent to throw the ball to. He's got 2 kids that are going to get drafted this year at receiver in Michael Wilson and Elijah Higgins. But intelligence-wise, you feel good about him being in your quarterback room and doesn't have a ton of upside, but he can throw the ball. Jaron Hall, though, I have him slightly ahead of McKee because of his RPO game. His RPO game, and he's an awesome athlete. A little older. I think he's going to enter the league at 25 or even 26, right? He's went BYU, went on the missions before he actually started playing football. So he started his football career later than most and then also had the COVID year. So Jaron Hall is another guy that I think just has more physical talent. He's not as big, but his RPO game, which is a huge part of some NFL offenses, he's very advanced in that area of his game. And I think the teams that like to use that in their offense are going to lean towards Hall.
Okay, but it will hurt his draft stock, his age.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, him and Hooker are pretty similar. He just turned 25 at the end of March, so a couple weeks ago. So he'll be a 25-year-old rookie. Yeah. If it's not going to hurt Hooker, Hooker is more of a franchise quarterback.
Oh, yeah. That you don't worry about that with Hooker, no.
Yes. So the backup quarterback, who's 6'2", 207, so we're talking about a small body. A couple of injuries on his resume as well. Yes. Concussion issues, ankle issue, core muscle injury. So you're talking about an old rookie with a durability red flag or two. I do think that could bump him down a little bit, unless, again, you're an offense that wants a better athlete than Tanner McKee back there.
Who was a better prospect, McKee or Davis Mills?
Good question. I had Davis Mills above Tanner McKee. I actually liked it. I think Davis Mills, if I remember back, I can look before we're done. I think I had him as my number 5 quarterback in that class. I liked him. I thought he was. I think he was a top 75 overall grade on my board. McKee's going to finish closer to 150, like a 5th round tier.
Okay. Now Clayton Tune. I really didn't think much of Clayton Tune until this past year. Really impressed with just overall. He's got a lot of what you're looking for in the NFL, and I think he could be a really good backup. Somebody that could, especially under the right system, he could be somebody that would be that could find his way around the NFL for a while.
Yeah, that offense, Dana Holgerson's offense really has not produced a lot of talent that went to the NFL at quarterback and really stayed in the NFL for a long time. So the production, I think he had 40 touchdowns this year, which is only behind FBS, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, right? Or sorry, Caleb Williams and C.J. Stroud. It's those two, and then you see this kid's name with touchdowns, and that's part of the system that put it in there. But what I like about him that we haven't seen with some of these Holgerson quarterbacks, he had 44 starts in college, and he got better every year. Footwork, ball placement, athletically, right? He actually, if you watch some of his tape from 2 years ago, he's a better athlete. You could tell he's done the work. So how long does it take for him to adjust to an NFL-style offense to the point where, hey, you're a snap away from being under center for our football team. I don't think it's going to be year one. So I think you're drafting a third-string quarterback no matter what. But he's, round 5, round 6, right up there, right below Tanner McKee in that area. You could probably even make the case that you like him more than Tanner McKee from, experience and arm talent. And just
I actually like Tune myself right after Hainer.
Okay.
And good. I just, look, he's got the accuracy. He's got good size. And I like the fact that when they played Auburn in the bowl win, he had a good game. He didn't, and that's an SEC defense. So yeah, I really like him as a gamble backup that you never know what you have moving forward, because that's what you're getting in the middle rounds, late rounds. You're looking for that. Mostly you are looking for a guy that can be definitely a career backup for you, no question. Yeah. But you are also looking for, hey, you know what? Is this a guy that I think has a shot? And see, because I look at some of these guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think he's 10th on your list. Okay?
Yep.
I'll just say it right here. No shot. No shot.
Okay.
Now, maybe he finds his way third string, but no shot. I give him 0. I wouldn't say that about Stetson Bennett. Now, you don't have Stetson Bennett in your top 10. He's just outside of it. Aiden O'Connell's outside of it. Max Duggan's outside of it. Out of those guys, is Aiden McConnell, does he have the better chance because of his abilities, his NFL ability, size, arm strength, and that, compared to Bennett or Duggan?
Yeah, there are going to be a lot of teams that, if they're still, hey, we want the traditional drop back passer, we don't care about the athleticism that much, they'll lean in that direction. You know what you're getting. Also, another kid that's going to be great for a quarterback room, just really smart, kind of like a coach type player. A few scouts that I have had the opportunity to talk with, once their work was done, they said that this is the one that leads the room or leads the group in potential head coach potential down the road. Just has that kind of presence about him. And those are the kind of guys you want in your quarterback room. And when you are looking for a backup quarterback, I truly believe some teams are not looking for the physical quarterback. They're looking for the mental addition to the quarterback room for meetings, game planning, bounce ideas off after. And you could see on Sundays how involved these backup quarterbacks are with the tablets and especially with a younger quarterback. And if you get O'Connell in your system, and then, 3, 4, 5 years down the road, he's still there as your backup, and you draft a rookie. That's an inviting situation. That's called a support system, right? When we talk about a support system for a young quarterback, it's not just offensive line, receivers, running back. It's a backup quarterback that can really lead the way. I don't think anyone's going to view O'Connell as a starter. The physical upside just isn't there. I think he's got a really awkward lower body, really awkward mover. He's got that Phillip Rivers kind of throwing motion that, yes, it worked for him, but it doesn't work for others. Not overly experienced. I think he has 27 career starts under his belt. I just have the feeling I have with him. I watched a lot of O'Connell. I watched a lot of Purdue because I got really into the receiver, Charlie Jones. And, I just thought he was really inconsistent when pressure came his way. And he was not a good enough athlete to evade it himself and create on his own.
Yeah, he had some stretches of games where he was, wow. Look at this guy. I mean, he could be a third round, a fourth round draft pick, and he could potentially become a starter at one day. And then you look at him in other games, and you're like, oh, this guy's got no shot. So
yeah, that's the vibe I got from him too many times.
Yeah. So he's intriguing. And he will, but yes, I believe he's a guy, like you said, because of his smarts, he's gonna find a way around the league for a long time. He's just gonna bounce around, and he's gonna be a good 2/3 kind of guy to have around your quarterback room. And then before we move on, so those other the championship guys, the prototypical. Well, yes, they're really good college quarterbacks, but Stetson Bennett or Max Duggan as an NFL quarterback just ain't going to happen. So what's their ceiling? Even if they were coached by the best team and the best quarterback guru, what's their ceiling?
Gardner Minshew, a guy that's going to maybe start a few games, start
That's
for
not
a
a
year
bad
because
ceiling.
no one else. No, it's not. Hey, my line on Bennett is if you love Bryce Young, you have to at least like Stetson Bennett.
Yes.
Not in the same tier, but they're both undersized, but they're both leaders. They're both gamers. They both evade pressure. They play football very similar style. Duggan, I've never come around on him. I try to. I love him as a college football player, but that has gotten me into trouble in the past. He misses too many throws. I think two things were manufactured for him. But hey, I like competitors. Here's another reason why I like those two, in addition to Dorian Thompson-Robinson, is in most cases, I think a lot of teams get this wrong with their backup quarterbacks. I want a guy that can create with his legs. That's a personal bias of mine. They're not a starting quarterback, usually because their arm talent is not good enough, right? Or their processing is not quick
Absolutely.
enough. Let's create something with this kid. Let's bring some energy to the defense. And I think offense, all three of those guys can do that at a high enough level, and they did it in college.
They could be very intriguing backups, no question about it.
Yeah.
And you know what? They could also, I don't know, again, the problem is you're not making a lot of money, but those guys might actually have great careers in the CFL.
Yeah. I mean, all these leagues that are popping up, I mean, I think at some point one of these business owners is going to get this right. Like one of these backup leagues is going to stick. And, it's fun. I mean, I haven't gotten too into them, but every now and then if I'm sitting home, which is very rare these days of nothing to do, I'll pop one of those games on. And it's funny. I remember these kids when I scouted them, day 3 picks, free agents, and it's fun to watch these kids play football. So I think one of these leagues is going to stick, and it's going to give guys like this starting opportunities.
Yeah, I've been saying it for years, and I know it's not going to happen. But if you had take a lot of money, and I get it, and Canada, they're proud about their heritage. But look, if you got to grow with the times, and if my idea would be, if you're really looking for a league to be successful, well, you have everything you want already in place. It's just in Canada. And I know they have weird rules. So you know what? Maybe you got to change some of those rules. Okay?
Yeah.
Don't you want your sport to succeed? You got to grow a little bit, expand with the times. Yes, and because CFL has just gone down and down and down. And what could bring them back up is having this sort of successful group of fringe NFL players playing north of the border. And I really think that could be a successful marriage. I just don't know if again, I think because of the history, you probably get too many Canadians that, I like the way my game is, and don't mess with it. So anyway, let's move on to the running back position. And Robinson is the clear number one, so much so that I actually believe, based on doing this, that he is the most underrated number one running back that I think I have seen in years. I mean, nobody's talking about him like he should be talked about.
Yeah.
It's like they talk about him like he's a fringe first-round draft pick.
I'll tell you what, if I put together my own mock draft, I'm trying to avoid it, but if I do, right, I'm putting him to Atlanta in the top 10.
See?
I think that's where he should go. I mean, he is. I haven't talked to anybody that has said he's not one of the top best 5 football players in this draft. And seeing him go in the 20s, to me, it's just bizarre. And, it's been a trend in recent years in the media. And I don't think the league has followed the media as much as the media thinks they have, that the running back value has diminished. I don't think that way. I think a few bad contracts have been handed out, or some things just simply did not work out.
Yeah, but don't you see it gaining a little bit of momentum back again?
Yeah. This past year, I think, was the biggest rushing year we've seen in a long time. I don't have the number on me, but I think it's almost a decade that this last year was the biggest rushing season we've had. And everyone loves to point to the Niners that they're ahead of the times. They're drafting 3rd round, 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, undrafted free agents. And creating their backfield production out of that. What did they just do?
Yeah.
They just traded for the expensive Christian McCaffrey, who's been injured multiple times in recent years. If you get the right guy, you take the risk. You pay him, right? And if you're anti-paying a running back, I understand the Giants are going to be in a weird position right now with with Saquon Barkley over the next year or two, right? That, to me, does not mean you don't draft them high. Yes, when you draft someone in the first round, you want them to make it to the second contract. But that's 5 years of football. That's an eternity in the NFL. If you're going to get a Bijan Robinson for 5 years and you know you might not sign him, that's not a good enough reason for me to not draft him. Absolutely not. Bijan Robinson needs to be a top 10 pick in this draft.
And then is it – because I know you've talked a lot about Gibbs whenever we've gone through that end of the first round, early second round running backs. So do you have Gibbs clearly as the number 2? You do.
Yeah. Yeah, the number 3 isn't close. The number 3 through number 7 are very, very interchangeable. Scheme-based, role-based. But it's Bijan up here, Gibbs here, and then the rest of the guys below. Gibbs is a first-round football player to me. And this kid is such an offensive weapon. I think he is one of the better receiving backs that we've seen come out. I mean, we're talking about what I love he did, right? He went from Georgia Tech to Alabama to increase the level of competition. That's really if you talk to him and listen to him and the coaches, the Georgia Tech coaches also talk about this, so he's not making this up. That's why he transferred to Alabama. He wanted more competition, not only in the SEC, but in the Alabama running back room. That is a hard job to get. There's 5 kids in that room that deserve to be the running back. Right? And Gibbs is the new guy that comes in, and he beat them all out right away.
Georgia Tech.
And not only did he do that, he had a career year. No, this is the best football we've seen him play. And so I love that intangible about him.
And that's the thing. Everybody's looking for guys that can do multiple jobs, and he can do 3 jobs and do them well.
Yep. He's the kind of guy that if you are rooting for a team that's playing against him, you get scared. You take a breath every time he takes the ball. Every single time. You're afraid because if he does get to the open field, he is legit. He ran a 4.36. I thought that was slow. I think he's a sub 4.3 guy on the field. You know, if you remember back to Chris Johnson, Jamal Charles, when they were just breaking off long run day after day, week after week, that's who this kid reminds me of. And I think he can have that kind of impact if he's put into the right system. Don't make him be your pickup truck, your 25 carry per guy. 10 to 15 carries, 5 to 10 catches a week. Let him do his thing.
All right. Now we go to that group. And I have made, there's no hiding my fondness with Zach Charbonnet's game. I think and I don't think that he's being under-evaluated. I mean, appreciated. I think where he's supposed to go and what he's projected at, I think that's what'll happen. I think he's probably going to get drafted somewhere second to third round, I would guess. And it's a good spot for him. But I just think he's going to have a really nice career. I think he is out of that group. I think he has the chance to be the best. I would give him I know I agree with you 1-2, but you know what? I would have Charbonneau 3 and then just a tiny little gap to the rest of those guys. I just really think Charbonneau, based on his size, he can pretty much do, if you want him to catch the ball a little bit, he can do that. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's like an old school kind of, running back that I think he's going to fit in. Maybe he would fit in really well with the Chargers. He could be that guy that we were talking about that can go to battle with sort of like the Melvin Gordon that they've missed for the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, I think we've both been in his corner for a long time. I think one of our early conversations were we like this kid, and I actually think not that the media is listening to us, but I think everyone's kind of gotten on board behind that. So you're right. He's not underrated right now because most people have him as their number 4 back, number 3 or number 4 back in this class. My 2 standout traits that I like about him that are not so obvious, you have to kind of really watch the film and maybe look at some of the numbers. A trait that carries over to the NFL really well, yards after contact, just constant every time. That's the kind of guy that in the 90s, I think he's a first-round pick, no question, because just ground and pound, break tackles, wear defense down. You pair him with an Austin Eckler type, you're going to do damage. Absolutely. The other trait that I like about him is his contribution to the passing game on 2 levels. He's got vacuums as hands, suction cups, right? He doesn't drop the ball, but also immediate day 1, week 1 blocker. And we see this with rookie running backs all the time. They don't get on the field because the coaches don't trust them to block when they need to block. It's not often, but the quarterback is the prized possession of the entire organization. If it is your job to pick up the blitzer and stop him, not just touch him, and you can't do it, you're not going to see the field. Charbonnet is probably the best blocker of maybe every running back in this class, but definitely among the top 10 guys, there's no one even close to him. And I think that's going to get a lot of coaches in his corner.
All right. Now, what's the difference between Evans, Bigsby, Miller, and a Chain? Is that how you pronounce his name, a Chain?
Yes, Devin and Chain, yep. So it's funny. I actually have Evans and Miller. They're just similar players to me.
That's why I'm asking, because they do seem very similar. So I'm trying to find out if there is a difference there.
Evans has a little bit more juice to him. Like he would scare me, not on the same level as Gibbs, but if he does reach the open field, I feel like he's got a little bit more breakaway speed. His yards per carry are just a ridiculous number. And I feel that he can add a little bit more kind of explosive plays, and that's what a lot of offenses are looking for in this era, are the guys that can give you the explosive plays. Miller is a kind of grind you out type back who has, among these backs in this tier, probably has the best what I call contact balance, meaning he's one of those guys that can move at Alvin Kamara does this at a really high level. He can move at a fast rate of speed and almost absorb a hit and then just start moving right away, right after. It doesn't take him a long time to recoil because he's so well balanced. His lower half is so well put together. A Chain is speed. That really is what you're getting. If you're going to draft Devin a Chain, you're trying to add speed. Dude's 188 pounds.
Yeah.
You don't play running back in the NFL at 188 pounds unless you have a standout trait. And not on the football field, I think, GPS wise, that's how they measure a lot of speed now in today's football. He's probably the fastest back in this class, maybe even definitely faster than Gibbs.
So you think he's going to probably be more of that passing down and also put him on special teams, return kicks?
Yeah. Texas A&M tries to sell him as an every down back because that's how they use him. But when he did have a lot of carries in a short amount of time, you saw it right away. It just goes down on initial contact a little too often. But he does. I mean, you don't want to see him in the open field. If he gets a little bit of space, he's going to run away with it. Bigsby is a guy that grew on me during the scouting process, and it's funny. There isn't a standout trait to him other than he's tough. He's tough as nails. He's a blue collar gap running back that will. Hey, if nothing's there, he's still going to get a yard or two, and he's going to get right back up and do the same thing. He never shies from contact, but he kind of on a Charbonnet type level does everything well. And when you have a back that's not a specialty back, I kind of like that coming off the bench behind my number one, is someone that is not, when certain backs come on the field in the NFL, you kind of know what the offense is leaning towards. I'm not going to say what they're doing, but trends do mean something. Every team's got an analytics staff, and they can almost accurately predict what you're doing based on what personnel is on the field. And a lot of that comes down to skill set. And Bigsby is someone that does it all at a high level.
All right. And then we get to the part where, and by the way, I completely agree with you. I would have Evans right there at number 4. But once you get, really, I think this is where we get to the point where you can draft these guys in the 3rd round, the 4th round, the 5th round, and they could turn out to be really good NFL running backs. And this is a very deep class. Deuce Vaughn, we've known his name for a while. He's been very productive. Eric Gray is one of those kind of sleeper type of running backs, that he's from Oklahoma. He's one of those guys. How many Oklahoma running backs come into the NFL and they kind of disappear? But I don't think that's going to be the case with Gray. I could see him being a little bit different. But Vaughn is the unique kid because of his size.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Vaughn, I have him higher on the running back stack than almost everyone I've talked to. And it's not necessarily because I think he's a better running back than all these guys. I think the word you use is what makes him stand out. He's unique. And, obviously we know he's not going to be anyone's number one back. He's 179 pounds. But let's not put 179 on the same frame as Charbonneau or Gibbs. The kid's 5'5". Yeah. He's a stout, powerful 179. If you watch him work out, you can tell this dude is actually pretty strong. Actually breaks a lot of tackles too. And part of that is he's powerful, strong lower body, but he's hard to touch. He runs so low to the ground. We saw this at Kansas State so often. It's almost like the defense, you can't find him. And in some cases, a running back, they know how to use that frame to their advantage. That yes, if a defender, NFL defender, gets a clean shot at him or gets it's over. He's on the ground. But good luck touching him. And he would have been a perfect fit for the Tom Brady Patriots.
Absolutely.
I mean, the ball in space.
Somebody's going to love this kid because they're going to know how to use him. They're going to put him out in the slot like he was used at Kansas State, and they're going to find unique ways to get him touches. They're going to, how can we get this kid about 5 or 6 touches a game? And
that's exactly what you're doing. I think you put him in the return game too, and he's going to create plays. He's not going to be an every week contributor where you're, like some of these other backs that I even have behind him. Like Chase Brown is probably going to do more week to week than Deuce Vaughn. But when you look at a career or an entire season, this kid's going to make things happen. I have no question on that part.
And I've also talked very highly about Keaton Mitchell, and really like Keaton Mitchell. And I know he's not a big guy, but he's a little bit. He's not as big as you want, but he's not Vaughn. So that's that. But I just really like his ability out of the backfield as well. I think he is going to be an excellent receiving running back in the NFL. He is a guy that you want on the field. 2-minute warning, you're marching down the field, and you want a running back there to help you. That's the guy. I think he's going to have a nice career.
Yeah, very elusive. That's the one word that always steps off, kind of jumps off the screen, off my scouting sheet. Like when I look at my notes from the season, I've written that word elusive 4 times. It's just he knows how to miss contact, and he's got enough juice. I mean, I think he ran a sub 4.4 if I remember correctly, and you give a guy that's already elusive, that will miss contact and create some space for himself to work with, and has that kind of breakaway speed with those kind of hands. You're talking about something like Deuce Vaughn. I think those guys can fit. They can fit next to each other. And Keaton Mitchell does have a little bit more size, not a lot more. I think 5'7", 179. So he's not as stout, but he has a frame that could probably add a little bit more than. Vaughn is maxed out, right? Mitchell probably plays 5 to 10 pounds heavier within the first couple of years of his career. So it just makes him a little more durable. You trust him against contact a little bit more. I see some slot receiver future in him because Mitchell is not a good blocker. Almost seems disinterested, does not have a lot of experience, but he was pretty bad there. And as much as a pass catching back as you're going to see him be, you still got to be able to block in some looks, right? Again, you don't want to be predictable. And if you see him come on the field, he's not going to be blocking. You don't want that. So I could see him getting some slot receiver looks, which would just give him a whole new list of teams that would want to work with him.
All right. Now, taking a look at the rest of your list, the ones players that are not in your rankings, the guys that really intrigue me a little bit. First of all, Ibrahim from Minnesota. How can this kid not be on your radar? And I understand he's not going to get drafted high because of his injury history. You just can't. You can't take a chance with a guy that's at that much of an injury history. But when you draft him a little bit later, basically you're just hoping that he's going to stay healthy. And if he does, he's a guy that could be a real deep sleeper. He's a guy that if he does find a way to stay healthy, could have a long, productive career in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm a big. For a while, I had him in the top 10. You have to just because I like the way he played football. Every time I watch Minnesota, I'm like, dude, he runs teach tape, meaning you put his tape on for high school kids and kids that are early in college. He plays running back the way it's meant to be played on all levels, as a blocker, as a runner, vision. And the injuries, they are an issue. And we're talking about a guy that, is a pretty small framed guy. I mean, his wingspan is under 70 inches, 28-inch arms. There are issues there that his body's maxed out. He's 210, which is heavy enough, but he's not going to get any bigger in the NFL. The speed is not going to be breakaway. But what are you looking for out of a running back? What are you looking for out of a backup? If it's a guy that can move the chains a little bit, reliable, protects the football. I mean, the guy had an insane amount of carries in college, and I think he fumbled 2 or 3 times. Like, I think his fumble rate's the best in the group. So,
well, you hit it on the head, the insane amount of carries. That's right. Not going to happen in the NFL.
Right.
And that's going to be an advantage because that led to him getting hurt.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have the frame, and he's just constantly going out there. And just look at this past year. I mean, he had no passing game. It was Ibrahim. And it was almost a miracle that he made it through the season healthy. So, I think because that's not going to happen in the NFL. That's why I give him a shot. I give him a shot to be a really good number 2 running back.
Yeah, and here's a question, right? Some teams, when they build the depth chart at running back, I mean, maybe not the number 2, but number 3, number 4, what else can they contribute to the team? Are they special teamers, gunners, returners? You don't see that out of him, and a lot of times when special teams coaches on day 3 get involved in the draft process, they're looking for tools, and the tools are what he just doesn't have. So unless someone views him as a number 2, which some might not because of the durability issues and how many carries he got in college, you could see this guy drop like a rock because we don't know what he can actually offer a team on special teams. It's not because no one thinks he's a good running back.
Well, I don't think he's going to get drafted I think it would be high if he got drafted in the 5th round.
Yeah,
I'm thinking 6th round, 7th round.
Yeah, I mean, I would be upset if we saw him go undrafted, and I don't think that'll happen, but it's possible because of what I just said.
It is.
It's a deep running back group, too.
Yes.
So there are a list of guys that you could make a strong case should be drafted ahead of him because of the durability issues.
And then the other guy that intrigues me because of his size and his power game. If you're looking for a power back, the sleeper power back I like is the kid from Appalachian State, Peoples.
Okay.
When I watch him play, he is just physical.
Yeah.
And I like that. He's got good enough size to be physical. He's got good size, really, to be physical for a running back. I don't know. I mean, he's definitely probably a little bit too stiff based on his height. That to make him anything more than that. But if you're looking for a guy that you want maybe around the goal line, if you just want that physical back that can help you for a few carries a game, I think he'd be a good compliment.
Yeah, definitely worth a flyer on round 3 for the reasons you said. He weighed in at 215 at the combine. I'm almost positive he played at 225 plus.
Yes,
a lot of these guys, they'll lean out for the combine just to get a little faster on the 40 time. So you're probably talking about a 225-pound back that runs angry, breaks tackles, can push piles. Early in his career, he had fumble issues, all right? And he still does not have the best ball security habits with how, what side he carries on, how much space he has between the ball and his torso. 10 career receptions, that's something that in a league that's going to turn some off. Yeah. But if you're a team that already has pass catching backs and you want a guy that, hey, we need a bruiser. We're 3rd and 1, 4th and goal. We need a guy that can just turn his brain off and use his, be a ram up the middle. Peoples is going to get some looks in that look. I believe he's going to get drafted.
Before we move on, any other sleeper running backs that you think has a chance to do even more than that? Who would you take a flyer on in the middle to later rounds?
I love the kid from Pittsburgh, Abanikanda. Israel Abanikanda.
Okay.
Just a slasher, plays faster than he times. Kind of a zone runner that didn't always hit his points correctly, so I think he needs to learn something. But when he did do it right, he looked the part. And he was very productive at Pittsburgh. I believe I'll look at it while I'm talking, but I believe he led the conference in rushing this past year in the ACC. And he's got the frame that can handle interior cuts, 5'11", 215, so he's pretty stout. He ran a 4.67. I have a lot of tape on him that he's running away from defenders in space. So he's just one of those gamer types. Breaks a lot of tackles. And I just think that he doesn't really trust his vision enough. And that is a trait that some teams are going to say, I'm good. I'll go somewhere else. But if this is a kid that can kind of figure out some of the mental nuances to the position, I think you're going to see his name at some point in the next 2-3 years.
All right. Let's talk wide receivers. And boy, it happened really like I guess it just took a pro day, but Jackson Smith and Jigba really turned a lot of heads and put himself in a position as potentially the number one wide receiver in this class. Do you think it's definite that he's going to be the number one receiver in this class?
I do not. I believe that a team that is looking for a slot, or at least a part-time slot that can play outside a little bit, but he's primarily the slot, no question he's the number one. But if you're looking for a sizable downfield threat that's going to be your outside, your X receiver, I think there's a shot we don't see him. We don't see him go first. No question, first rounder to me, but I don't think it's consensus that he's the number one guy.
Yeah, because if you look at it, what would you say that the possibilities of your top three of being the number one, and I'm talking about Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers? Do you think that's it's between those three?
Yep. I think Johnson just is the standout with the size. If you want a little bit more of the vertical speed, build up speed, downfield threats, wide catch radius, Johnson is just so far above those two that you almost have to pick him if that's what you're looking to add to your offense. Flowers, in this era of football where separation is and yards after catch are becoming that quick, explosive, like, hey, I hit my top speed in 2 steps. Flowers is that guy. And from what I've heard, he's impressing teams in interviews that he's almost coming across as probably the most intellectual and smartest receiver in this draft at the top.
What about his size? What is that?
He's, I believe, I have the numbers in front of me. He measured in at 5'9", 182 with 29-inch arms, 72-inch wingspan. That is very small. That is smaller than what you would say, hey, if I have big, average, small, he's below the small line. You're drafting him because of the quickness, explosion, ability to separate, ability to make some things happen after the catch. But one thing that he has that the two guys above him don't, he was very versatile with where he aligned. A lot of teams don't like to take a receiver and put him into one spot. Johnston, weird stat about him, in 2021, he played pretty much every single one of his snaps on the right side. 2022, he played pretty much every single one of his snaps on the left side. And not only was he not playing slot and outside, he wasn't even going to the other side of the field. It's not a huge deal, and you don't want to use it against him, but you have to assume the learning curve there is going to be steeper. Someone asked me the other day, is Johnson going to be a year one contributor? Because that's their personal rule for a first-round pick. I think you're going to have to be a lot more patient with him than the rest of the guys that are in this running. It's just a little bit more, and he's a raw pass catcher too. There's a lot of boxes that still need to be checked for him. I still have a first-round grade on him. I still think very highly. The R-Lads guide has him as our number one receiver. I think it's warranted. Gun to my head, I like Smith and Jigba. I just feel better about him. But
he's got the size, he's got the physicality you're looking for, and he's got big playability. I mean, his yards per catch very high, so he's a playmaker. So he's the guy that has pretty much everything. Like, what did he run, by the way?
Right around 4.5, 4.52. And I'll tell you this about it. That's not overly impressive. It's not bad. But
that's what prevents him from being elite. That's what prevents him from being the absolute number one pick in the draft for a receiver.
Right. And I'll tell you what, I think just to build off that 40 talk with him, he's got what I call build-up speed, meaning it just takes him a little extra time to get going. But once he gets
going, you're not going to catch him. Yeah.
No. So, let's not – I mean, Smith and Jigba also ran around a 4.52. They're completely different. He's actually – if they race, Smith and Jigba would probably start ahead of him right away, and then Johnson would catch up. If you have him run a 60-yard dash, Johnson's 10 yards in front of him. So if he gets over the top of you, it's kind of like a DK Metcalf type. If he gets over the top, you're not catching him.
Hey, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, it is. Metcalf is such a freaky body type, but big, physical, build up speed, a little bit of a raw. But if you hit on him and you develop him and he does hit a ceiling, he's a wide receiver one.
Yeah. All right. Yes, I agree. I mean, I'd have him as the number one receiver just because of that. Not that I don't like the other guys, but I just think he's got the other guys. You kind of know, chances are what their ceiling could be, but and that's good. It's good where that ceiling is going to be. But Johnson, his ceiling is way higher. So
yeah.
Now whether or not, but he also has a little bit of, because of his hands history. That's the big, that's the big issue. Those inconsistent hands can cost him big time if he doesn't improve upon that in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you what, Zay Flowers and Johnson, they both have a 10% drop rate in college. And again, I've said this before, you want that number to be below 6%. That's really what you're aiming for. And they drop more passes than they should have in college. I think Johnson's was more mechanical concentration. Flowers he's not a big guy. Hands aren't very big, right? You're going to have to deal with both of that. Both those guys are going to be dealing with issues like that early in the career.
All right, Jordan Addison. Because Jordan Addison could have been the number one receiver, and that's really what a lot of people thought after the Biletnikoff season. But still, even though last year wasn't a home run for him, he still got the ability that no one was going to be surprised 3-4 years from now if he's the top receiver in this class.
Yeah, there's still a camp of supporters that believe Addison should be the first wide receiver taken in this draft. And, I have to be fair here. We'll talk about him, I'm sure, later. Cedric Tillman. Yeah. Him and Addison, if you want to get the best feel for what they can be, you got to go watch the 2021 tape. And if you do, if Addison opted out this year, which is funny, he went to USC, played with, Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams, you probably would say, opted out, Jamar Chase type style, first round pick. But 144 targets at Pittsburgh in 21, just 79 in 2022.
There you go.
Injury, we just didn't see him get the ball enough, but he did show a different angle to his game. At Pitt, he was really a slot. He showed that he can line up on the outside and still get open, so that's important.
Where do you think he's best at?
Honestly, Stephon Diggs type role, split right down the middle, half outside, half inside. I think he can do it. But the pre-draft process has not been friendly to him. Measured in a little smaller than what we thought, 5'11", 173. Didn't measure in as fast as we thought, as quick. Arms are short, hands are small. These traits and his 2022 tape, they scream day two. And that is where I ended up leaving him, was at the top of round 2. So if I see someone take him in round 1, I'll call it a reach. The traits just are not there. And part of me has this thinking that maybe that Biletnikoff year, that award year in 2021 was a little engineered for him. Just like I feel that way about a lot of players when you bring up production, that it was engineered for them rather than them going out and earning it.
Do you think he should be a punt returner?
Yeah, I love.
Or is he too valuable?
No, I don't think he's too valuable.
Okay.
If we're talking 2021 version, right? If he opted out, maybe we would say that. But I think he proved in 2022 that we need to see a little bit more out of him, and that could be what we need to see is the return ability. Question will be durability at that point. The body type isn't there. It's 170 pounds.
Okay, let's talk about those two Tennessee receivers, Tillman and Hyatt. And like you said, Tillman had a huge 21, almost a 17-yard average per catch. A lot to like about him. Physical receiver, all that, playmaker. Things did not go well for him this past year. He had the ankle injuries. But then you take a look at Hyatt, and Hyatt had the luxury with his elite speed and the breakout of Hendon Hooker to take advantage of that final season that Tillman was not able to. But overall, as you have ranked him, Tillman still, though, is a more complete receiver.
Absolutely. 6'3", 213, enormous hands, 10-inch hands, long arms. I mean, huge radius. Better athlete than people think. Jumped really high. The 40 was right around, I believe it was around 4.5. Again, he's in that Smith-Njigba, Quentin Johnson tier. Similar to Johnson, build-up speed. If he gets behind you, you're not going to get him. But maybe not the most sudden mover, but still a really well-developed route runner. And I used his 2021 tape for 90% of my scouting report on him. Obviously, I watched what he did in 2022, but he had a really significant and unique ankle injury that required a surgery that is not done on guys often that want to go back and play football. And I actually give this kid a ton of credit. The book on him coming into the year is how competitive he was, how coachable he was, how much of a team guy he was. And he put that on display by coming back and playing this year. I think almost every receiver that we've talked about, I mean, what did Smith and Jigba do this year? Pretty much shut it down once he got hurt. Most of these guys would have done what Smith and Jigba did. The fact that he came back out and tried to help that team win says a lot about him. Now, you're not going to use a first-round pick on a guy because of that. But when you combine that mental trait with what he has on tape in 2021, you talked about those stats, right? I mean, 64 catches, 1,081 yards, 12 touchdowns in the SEC with a Hendon Hooker that was still trying to figure this out a little bit. Right?
And almost a 17-yard average.
Yeah. And, I mean, we're talking about a guy that almost never drops the ball. We talked about a 10% drop rate with Johnson and Flowers. This guy dropped the ball at 4%. And over 50% in contested situations. That's a number you don't see often.
And with that high percentage, high catch percentage, that's very rare. So
Exactly. That's the good word for it, Greg. It's rare. And, you get to know him a little bit. You can watch him talk a little bit. Again, I try to avoid, becoming a psychiatrist, but I do like watching these guys talk. I will literally sit on YouTube and watch interviews of these guys and from a training camp practice 2 years ago. And this is the kind of guy I think coaches, when they get involved, they're going to want this kid on their team.
All right. So that next group, and you can include Tillman Hyatt, you got Marvin Mims, you got Josh Downs. Are they kind of together there?
Yep. I have Hyatt, Mims, Downs, and Dell all is the same exact grade. So
okay. We talked a lot about Dell. And I know he's got the size limitations, but again, if Tutu Atwell can get drafted high, then Nathaniel Dell will probably get drafted high as well.
Yeah, I was on an interview last night. That's exactly what the guy said. Was if Tutu Atwell can get drafted at that size in the second round, so can Dell. I mean, Dell's a much more complete receiver. Not the same size as Kadarius Toney, but the trait that stands out Toney had and still has, that Dell has, he's unbelievably quick out of breaks. Like, it's almost like there's something missing in his lower body that restricts movement, because he can turn on a dime as well as anyone. And even though he's not small, go watch some of his red zone tape, right? When you think red zone receivers, what do you think? Big, physical, go up and get it. He was unstoppable in those situations. Why? Because him and Clayton Tune had a good thing going. You just knew he was going to get open. He would come off the line. You'd see 2-3 bodies that, like, all right, there's no way this guy's going to find a crease. He always found it because he just explodes out of a cannon. I think that's a trait. Are there limitations to his game? Absolutely. But this is a guy, when you look at the size, you almost don't care as much as some of the other ones because he's so competitive. He's so tough. His nickname is what? Tank. This is a guy that plays like he's 195 pounds. And you watch him block, he gets it done there too. So, yeah, I mean, 160 pounds, I mean, I think that's where he measured in at, right, was 165 pounds. Yes, that's still 165 pounds when you come in contact with grown men in the NFL. But like Deuce Vaughn, you got to touch him first.
Sure. And this is definitely a kick returner.
Yeah.
This is a guy that you're going to put a punt return game, a kick return game, any chance that you can get him the ball in those types of situations, you got to do it. So that's what he's going to add to your team too. Sort of like, almost very similar to how you looked at Marcus Jones last year from the same school.
Yeah.
A guy that was a little bit smaller. You didn't know like how that would affect his overall game, but playmaker. And you saw it in the NFL. You saw it in his first season. He was making plays and playing a lot better than people thought based on his size. And I know Dell's smaller, but he could be the same type of you can get the same type of production. All right. Now go over outside of the top 10, go over the receivers that you think, because there's a lot of them. It's a very, it's a nice deep class as usual. So give me some guys that you think we should keep an eye on.
The number one guy I want to talk about is Charlie Jones from Purdue.
Oh, yeah, Charlie Jones.
Started off at Buffalo. Does anyone even know that, right? Goes to Iowa, makes his mark as a returner, but barely saw any action in that garbage offense as a receiver. Goes to Purdue to play with his Pop Warner quarterback, Aiden O'Connell. Last-ditch effort. Let's see what we can do. Maybe I'll get a job somewhere outside of football once it's done. Goes out and just tears it up from week one, too. I mean, the kid right away. My favorite thing about his game was when he faced off against Devin Weatherspoon, Joey Porter Jr., and Garrett Williams, all cornerbacks. Garrett Williams from Syracuse, Porter from Penn State, Weatherspoon from Illinois, all pro cornerbacks. Two of them were going to be first-rounders. He beat them. And it wasn't like a one-time thing. He beat them. Watch the entire tape. I don't want to say he's the better player, but I kind of do, right? I mean, those are the tapes that I love watching the most, is when these guys were matched up against their best competition. And then he goes out to the combine, and I did not see this coming. He ran He ran a 4.43. I thought he'd be more of a 4.5 guy. Again, I'm not going to overreact to that. But now we're talking about a guy that has a really good tape against really good competition. That is one of the top, 10 fastest receivers at the draft in the combine. Measured in a little light, 5'11", 175, but nothing that I'm going to be overly concerned about. Watch him catch the football. Watch him run routes. This is a pro receiver, and he's inside-out versatility. I have him as a fourth rounder. I'm not getting overexcited
here.
Sure,
but that doesn't mean that he's going to end up as a fourth-round productive guy.
Right. I feel safe with him. When you start drafting receivers day 3, you're looking like 1 out of 3 really pan out to be something in the NFL, maybe beyond special teams. I'm talking offensive football. This is going to be one of those 3. He's going to be that guy. You put him against other receivers that are going day 3. I think there's a shot that a team picks him at the end of the day too. I have that kind of outlook on him. But he's like really my favorite guy that's not in my top 10 that I'm really confident is going to have a good career at the next level.
And by the way, keep this in mind because this is very important for anybody out there that is wondering, we haven't had time to talk about the player you like. And once you get a hold of the draft guide, the RLS draft guide, you can be able to see all of these players that we don't have time to talk about. But the other thing to keep in mind is we are going to have our draft review shows, and we're going to be going through every team. And when we go through every team, we're going to have more time to go through every player. And that's really going to be a good time that if we're missing the opportunity to talk about one of the players that you'd like us to talk about, we will be talking about that player for sure when we get around to the draft review portion videos. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So let's wrap up with we got the tight end before we wrap up with the offensive line. And we've been talking about these guys forever. Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave, Darnell Washington, and Michael Mayer. Your top 4, these are the guys. Any of these 4 can be drafted in the first round. All 4 of them can end up being drafted in the first round. One of these guys could get drafted earlier than we think. Mm-hmm. It could be Dalton Kincaid. It could be Darnell Washington. It could be any of these guys. So I actually think that might happen. I just get a feeling that one of these guys is going to get drafted earlier than because it's happened in the drafts before where guys get drafted in the top 10 even. Wow, that tight end got drafted that high. They really, not to say like a Kyle Pitts doesn't deserve it, but sometimes right team, right spot. They love the guy. Think it could be a real big difference maker for their team. I'm getting him. So I think that's what we're going to see, and it's really going to depend on really what you like and what you need with those first 4 guys.
Yeah, here's a question for you. All right, in the first round, what position gets drafted more, tight end or receiver?
Oh, I would have thought receiver.
It's a good question, right? But it could be tight end. Like we just riled off 4 guys.
Yeah.
That have credible first-round grades or possibilities. At the wide receiver group, I think you can make a case that there's only going to be 3. Yeah. And you can make a case there might only be 2.
You're right.
I have not been able to – I haven't had the time, but I don't think that's been done in a long time.
This could happen.
Decades. So I'm going to look – maybe that should be our trivia question for the mock draft. When's the last time more tight ends were drafted than receivers in round 1?
Yeah, because keep that in mind. We're going to have our live mock draft on the 21st, and we're giving away PDF draft guides. So, and these are going to be some of the questions. So, sure. If you get the opportunity to answer that question, the first one that answers the question correctly, and all you got to do is obviously put it in the comment section, we'll work out a PDF draft guide for you. Okay, so once we get through those first 4, all very good players, and we'll dissect them. And look, if you've been watching our videos, we got tons of stuff on these guys.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about them. We'll get in depth once they're drafted even more. But outside the guys we haven't really talked about, which guy is the biggest upside out of the top 4?
Biggest upside might actually be the kid from South Dakota State, Tucker Kraft. And I say that because a lot of people don't know about him, right? He didn't play this. I think he either missed all the season or most of this past season with an injury. But coming from South Dakota State, how many games have you watched them play? So that's part of the reason why I think he's going to kind of come out of nowhere if he gets into the right system. But if he hits his true upside physically, I think he's got the goods. He's an inline tight end, 6'5", 254. Ran a 4.6 at his pro day. At that size, that's very impressive. Watch him play football. He can go up and get it. I think he's outside of the top 4. I think he's the best one at getting the ball away from his body. And, why are tight ends becoming a bigger thing? I think it's a trend that we're going to continue to see in the NFL over the next few years. Everyone's looking for that Travis Kelce mismatched slot tight end that you just don't know what to do with defensively. And I think, not comparing Kraft to that player, but he brings that kind of body and that kind of movement ability to the table. He's just a little bit of an unknown. He's going to make a huge jump in competition. So you got to be a little careful with what you're doing with him early on. But these other guys that I have above him, Sam Laporta, Davis Allen, even Josh Whyle, that's right below Kraft on my stack. They lean in a certain direction, right? Laporta is your F tight end, motion, move him around pre-snap, get in and out of breaks, make things happen after the catch. Davis Allen is probably the best blocking tight end outside of Darnell Washington. And Josh Whyle is another F tight end. Tucker Kraft is kind of like the one in this second tier that can do it all.
Well, and then one guy I want to talk about before we move on is Schoonmaker, because we have had some response from our viewers on Schoonmaker. What's his ceiling?
Ceiling is starting tight end. I have 11 guys in this group, which is just, I can't even believe I'm saying that. 11 guys that I think could be starting tight ends at the next level. And he was one of them. I'm 6'5", 250, so he's got that wide tight end body. Worked out a little bit better than I thought. Every time I wrote notes on him during the year, it was, hey, he's a pro. He's a pro. He's a starter, right? The movement traits with him as a route runner and after the catch, they're a little bit more lethargic than some of these other guys. He's just not as sudden, high. That happens with his, he's got a high hip frame, just long limbs. And it's not a bad thing in some cases. But with a tight end that you're going to really, in this class especially, right? I mean, I have him as my number 10 guy. Normally, you say a number 10 guy is probably a 6th or 7th round pick.
Yeah, normal drafts, yes.
This kid is day 2, early day 3. And look what the Giants did with Daniel Bellinger last year. 4th round tight end, and the guy started every game that he was healthy for. Schoonmaker could be that guy. I just don't see the ceiling with some of these other guys that are in front of him.
Yep.
And I'm not coming down on him at all. I think he's going to be a pro tight end, a starter at some point. But he's going to be, one of those guys that at some point you're saying, okay, he's replaceable. But he's going to be in the league a long time.
He'll be valuable. Yeah. He's the type of guy you want on your team in your tight end room. Yep. All right. Now let's talk offensive line to wrap things up here. And again, you've got the rankings for most of these guys that you've already seen. So, and we spent a lot of time talking about these players on our other shows. And speaking of our other shows, you can check them out. We've got the library of shows on this channel. You can also go to the OFN link homepage at ourleds.com. Click that, and then you got right there. Just check them out, and you can find out all the times that we're talking about all these different positions, including the offensive line. So once again, Skoronski's your top guy, but he's also, is he there because he's also got some versatility that you like?
That's part of his grade. I see Zach Barn in him. I do want to see him get a shot at right tackle or left tackle even, but that's going to be based on the situation he gets drafted into. If you already have a tackle or 2 on your team, you put him inside and you have Zach Martin for the next 10 years, you can't be upset by that.
Top 10. Who could be in the top 10 in that group?
Which tackles can be in the top 10?
Top 10 tackles.
Derek Jones is kind of like my leader in the clubhouse for the Bears at 9. I think that pick makes a lot of sense. I think he's the only other one that I would see get taken in the top 10. I think Paris Johnson, Matthew Bergeron are more teens, 20s type guys.
Okay. And then when you're taking a look at anybody outside the top 10 that's not on your rankings, give me a player or two that you think could become a really good player at the next level.
I would say the one that I feel really good about is Asim Richards from North Carolina, a guy that's gotten better every single year, but still played 3 years at North Carolina, has a lot of experience under his belt. His tape in 2022 was very good against his best competition. Might make a move inside, but I think he brings that outside inside versatility. A shot in the dark here that I love on tape. I thought he was one of the bigger combine snubs is Kadeem Telfort from UAB, an unbelievable drive blocker with the best length, this best combination of power and length in this entire class. I think he had something like 36 or 37-inch wingspan arms, and you saw things started to click this past year that he understood how to use them, and he gets movement off the ball as well as any tackle in this group.
A couple of interesting guys I like in that grouping is Blake Freeland and Braden Daniels.
Yeah,
those are a
Blake
couple of guys.
Freeland is a freak athlete, a huge track background, and it kind of I've heard the name Brian O'Neill mentioned, the right tackle from Minnesota.
That's a nice career. Yeah.
Kind of came into the league as like, all right, better athlete than football player. Colton Miller, same situation from UCLA drafted by the Raiders. Took him a while to get acclimated and developed, but everyone's looking for offensive linemen. And when you're talking about a physical package, Freeland has it all. He just has a few things that are coachable that need to be fixed.
All right. Offensive guard. And Torrance is the clear number one. Is he the only guard that gets drafted in the first round?
Avila's got a shot because of the versatility he brings to the table. I actually think you can make a case. Remember, this kid played center in 2021. That was his spot. It wasn't a part-time position for him. And the center group, I like from a second, third, fourth round perspective. Avila, if you said, hey, put him in the center stack, I think he's better than those guys. And the fact that he could also play guard, that might get him drafted at the first round.
And the kid from North Dakota State, what do you like about him?
Just unbelievably gifted as an athlete, still very new to the position, but he's playing it like he's played for 15 years. I mean, the kid didn't even play real high school football where he came from. And then he was a defensive end at a tight end. I mean, he played tackle for just a couple of years, and he goes to the Senior Bowl. Now he's bringing this position versatility to the table that no one else does. Some guys think he's going to be a center. So you're talking a college tackle that is athletic enough to play there, that played majority guard at Senior Bowl, that some teams think could play center. You love that. You love that combination, and just a fun kid to watch play football.
By the way, the kid Voorhees from USC, he's dealing with an injury, correct?
Tore his ACL. I was watching it live during a drill at the combine. So you're looking at a March torn ACL for an offensive lineman that did have some early career durability issues in his lower body already, that my guess he won't be on the field until 2024.
So where does he get drafted?
That's a good question. I had him as the third rounder originally. I bumped him down to the fifth. That's where I think he'll go somewhere. He'll get drafted. He's a starting caliber dude, but you're going to redshirt him for a year, and he's an older rookie too. I think he's going to be 26 when he gets onto the field.
Yeah, that's a Pro Football Focus's pet offensive lineman the last few years.
It is, yeah.
I just love the kid.
Yeah, so. Very productive. Some of his movement traits aren't ideal. He's a big boy that struggles with leverage, and now you're talking about a lower body injury for the second time in his career. It's going to cause some concern.
All right, and then we wrap it all up with the center position, and John Michael Schmitz, without a doubt, the number one center in the class.
I wouldn't say without a doubt. He's my number one. I don't think that's consensus.
Okay.
And Schmitz, Tittman, and Whippler, these guys all have the same grade on my sheet, and I think they're going to go based on what scheme is drafting them. If you want
just those top three.
Just those top three. And Schmitz is the weakness, the dent in his armor. He's good. He's a good athlete in short spaces, but if you're an outside zone team and he really needs to get across the three technique and get there in a hurry with balance and control, I don't see it there. Tittman, not the ideal body type because he's so tall. He might even make a move to guard at the next level, but him and Whippler are much better at that lateral movement, those first 2-3 steps when they have to move laterally. But Schmitz is the best at holding an anchor and really, being face up against a big nose tackle. I trust him in that situation. I also just trust the intelligence factor there. I think he's a leader. He's going to be a week one starter, Creed Humphrey type, just like, hey, we don't really need to worry about it. I just think the upside is going to be a little limited there.
Yeah, and I mentioned before, and I don't just talk about one of my two favorite teams very
Right.
often, unless I really mean it. But I do like the kid, the Virginia transfer,
Oh yeah.
Oluwatimi. I think he's got a really good shot. Definitely, I think he's going to be around a long time as a starting center. Now, how good he could be, we'll see. But yeah,
Mhm.
he's more of the power type, right?
Definitely more the power type. And some teams, that's what they want. So you could see him go in front of a Luke Whippler type just because of that fact alone. I mean, Whippler did hold his own against Jalen Carter when Ohio State played against Georgia. That was a standout to me. But Oluwatimi, a ton of experience, smart, leader, and just he's a tree trunk. Like, you're not going to put that guy is going to hold the fort down. I just don't know if he can reach all the points, second level and against the three technique. It caused a little bit of concern there, but you can scheme around that, and some teams do.
By the way, as we close out, I just want to let everybody know this is a tip because it happened last year to me. This is perfect, right? You talk about the zone centers and how they get to fit in with the NFL, and you know that if an NFL team runs a power game or they're not taking that zone center, it's all been thrown away after what the
Yeah.
Philadelphia Eagles did. Actually, not the Eagles. It was
Ravens.
Ravens did drafting Linderbaum. So
Yeah.
it was okay. But it worked, and that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's why Baltimore's Baltimore. That's why they know how to draft. You draft the
Yep.
talent, you figure it out later.
Yep. Some teams do that much better than others. I agree. When I saw him go to Baltimore, I was surprised, but it was also like they just know what they're doing. They know. I mean, they built an entire offense around Lamar Jackson. Look what he wins an MVP, right? That wouldn't have happened if he played anywhere else, maybe. So some teams do that much better, and it's funny. The best teams in the NFL, that's a big part of their system, is they draft the best football players, and then they just manufacture the scheme, tweak things here and there to make it work.
Dave, excellent job as always. Appreciate it. We'll talk defense on Friday. If anybody has any questions before that, let us know in the comments section. Obviously, you can also let us know what you think about our offensive rankings, Dave's offensive rankings here today. And like I said, if we haven't talked about your player, don't worry, we will once the draft is over and once we get through our team-by-team draft recaps. So, Dave, appreciate it. We'll talk defense on Friday.
Thanks, Greg. Can't wait.